Next up for an interactive panel discussion on reinventing organizational structure, the transformative role of HR and L&D leaders in shaping a resilient and agile workforce for the future hybrid digital workplace. For that, I would like to call on dais our moderator for the day, Mr. Ashutosh Saboo, AVP Marketing and Communication at Force, and our fellow panelist, Ms. Padma Priya Venkatesan, Head HR Products Neilsoft, Ms. Judith Antao, Head of HR Rolex Logistics, Ms. Nitu Pathak, Head of Talent Development India and East Asia ZS, Ms. Soumya Sadarangani, VP L&D Marsh and McLennan, Ms. Sampada Inamdar, Head and Talent Culture Transformation Tata Motors, Mr. George Cardoz, Head of HR and Talent Acquisition Forbes Marshall, Mr. Anand Patil, GM L&D Persistent System, Mr. Kaushal Javadekar, Talent Development Leader India Veritas Technologies LLC, Mr. Pratap Pawar, VP HR GS Lab, and Mr. Mahesh Joshi, Human Resource Director, also CHRO for Honeywell Automation India Limited.
And philosophy. Because technology, I feel, is an enabler. It's going to help you to bring about your organization's effectiveness. But if you don't have your processes and your approach, which is aligned to your organization's objectives and business objectives, I don't think it's going to really matter really. I'll just pick on what Shashwat and Kanika ma'am said. Look at, there's no one size fits all. It has to go back to your organization's requirement. How you're going to drive business, right? And how you're going to enable people operating of whatever mode they are. Currently, we have probably, at least 10 operating models probably in this room, right from 100% in office to, 100% into work from home. So we'll have to define those requirements from an organization standpoint, right? Also, and I'll pick up from what Mahesh said on the structure. I think structure is something that at the organization level we'll have to look at, reviewing. But for us at HR, I think the word HR and L&D itself brings a lot of questions for me, because if we don't operate as one ecosystem, one unit, I don't think we're going to bring out any change. Because it has to be, if it has to be seamless, it has to be seamless from where we start, right? So we, as HR professionals, start looking at right from TA, or probably before that, to the end of line. How do we do, in fact, when people want to go, or why they want to go, to the time of retirement. So we'll have to look at all these, breaks that we have currently in the way we are structured. So we have to look at how do we bring it under one umbrella, and thereby accordingly bring in the systems that will enable us to perform at the highest level. I think that's what I would like to.
Jokes apart, sir, I hope you bring all of that into the headphones umbrella you got today.
Thank you.
So, my next question to Neetu ma'am for ZS's inputs. What role does HR and L&D play to drive continuous learning in the hybrid workplace?
Okay. Am I audible? Is the mic audible? I hope this is better. Yeah. Speaking of roles, I think we have all been there. HR and L&D, we play whatever role comes our way, right? Like we've been very loosely placed sometimes. But jokes apart, I think even before we go into the role bit, the question is, why do we exist, right? Like the HR and the L&D team. And something which George brought up is, even before you look at what role are you playing, ask yourselves, why do you exist? You exist because you want to ensure that whatever business that you are in, whichever company you are in, you're aligned to the goals, right? Ultimately, all of us need to join hands together to meet the goals of the company. And when you have that in perspective, of the many roles that HR and L&D can play, I could think of 2 or 3 key ones that stands out for me, and at least I make a conscious effort to be playing that role. The first one, I would call it more of a strategic counsel. Make sure that you find your place at the boardroom, at the table where strategy is being discussed. Because strategy is just not about business and revenue streams. Talent plays a huge, huge role there, right? What it will do is it will help you understand where is the business going, what are we chasing, and then how can you be a value partner to help realize that business goal. So one is being that strategic counsel and being a part of it. Second, playing the role of a thought partner. Everything cannot be solved by L&D, right? Every talent challenge cannot be addressed by L&D. So there, with your expertise, your experience in the field of talent, you can be a thought partner to your business leaders to tell them what is it that you can solve and what is it that you can't solve. And if there is something that can be solved, then what are some of the ways to do about it? It's also challenging mindsets, right? Like we say, okay, it's a hybrid workforce, we need economies of scale, बहुत सारा e-learning भर देते हैं. That's not, what economies of scale is all about, right? I think the third role that I play is of being an experienced designer. This is our very, very critical role, especially with the challenges the hybrid workplace and workforce brings in. So experienced designer would mean, what is it that you're doing with your programs? Are you making an attempt to design all-inclusive learning programs for folks who are in the brick-and-mortar environment, which is your office, and also people who are sitting miles away, right? We talk about synchronous learning, asynchronous learning. What we really forget is we learn the best in a social setting, just like today, right? Like we are hearing each other, we're asking each other questions. So make sure that even when you're designing experiences, keep that in mind, that just because somebody's sitting remote, they don't have to be dumped with 10 million pathways and, e-learning. Find out ways where we can also engage them meaningfully. The other question also is that when they come to work, why is it that they're coming to work? Why are you asking your people to come to work? Very often, business will push the button to say, hey, they're coming to work, we have more business meetings. But that's where you need to be a thought partner and say, we need to get people to collaborate, and learning is also one of the ways where they collaborate. Can we get together and have like a lunch and learn session? So designing that experience, and then of course, leading and being the execution driver. So everything that we've planned, L&D has to be the execution driver, leading from the front to make it happen, but with equal partnership and ownership from business, right? So being a strategic counsel, being a thought partner, also being an experienced designer, and lastly, being in the execution driving seat. I feel that's where L&D needs to be focusing on in terms of their role. Does that make sense?
That's great, ma'am. Being an experience, entire concept just stood out to me. Next time we are in conferences, we'll also try to get inputs from you. I think it's going to be super for the entire audience too. Yeah? So my next question is to Rolling Logistics, right? That's, yeah, umlaut, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a German company. I just understood the pronunciation. Ma'am, I have a very simple question. Role of leadership to manage and inspire hybrid workplace and balancing empathy. Can we talk about this? Yeah.
Thank you, Ashutosh. And a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Edforce and team as well, with a lovely co-panelist team. Big and more the merrier, I would say. Okay. So definitely most of my panelists have covered, but I would like to touch upon the empathy part. As leaders, I would begin with this statement. Let's keep it simple, and let's be honest to ourselves. That's what would be my perception. Many a times I've observed, and this is purely practical sharing that I've observed and the experience that I've undergone, people talk about empathy, but they really don't know the difference between empathy and sympathy. It's only when I say, chalo bichara hai, kar do. I'm saying, why to go to that level? We have to practice empathy as HR leaders, including as L&D leaders. So how do we do that? First is, of course, trust. Everything, every relationship begins with trust. If that's not there, nothing works. Personal, professional, everything. So I would emphasize on that word. It's not a simple, it sounds simple, but you need to put it in practice. So trust, followed by the bonding that you develop. And definitely this would be followed by empathy. So now hybrid is here to stay. We cannot avoid that under any circumstances. Even if you try to, we might push employees, staff, come to office, it's needed. As my colleagues over here mentioned it, meetings are there, but are they really required? Sometimes they're not wanted there, right? So let's be a little mindful, keeping the distance in mind, keeping the struggles and it's not I'm from Mumbai, so I know the struggle for traveling. It's not that easy. But then, we we still have that back, at the back of our mind that no, we have to see the employee sitting in front of us. That means kaam kar rahe. But that's not the way. We need to even change our own selves as leaders. So let's, try to improve ourselves first. That's what I think. And let's not look at employees as commodities. But yes, they are people. They have respect. Very important. So these words are very simple, but I still say we need to focus on these words. And if we put them in practice, I think everything else falls in place. E-learning, trainings, connecting, even a sense of belongingness, everything comes there. Even the sincerity of the employee comes there. Yeah. Like I've experienced this. When you show that trust or other, practice that, they, on their own, they're very open. They'll say, no, ma'am, this happened. This was the issue in the family. And you know that we are on the right track. And definitely everything falls, productivity comes in, sincerity comes in, the efforts are seen. So I think it's a win-win situation for all of us. Mm-hmm. So let's not treat employees as commodities or something that of course we are not doing that, but let's be a little mindful. What exactly is empathy? What is that trust? Do we really trust somebody? Our employees, we say, bharosa to bahut hai, but I don't think it's really there. So let's be a little honest and let's keep it simple. So that's the end, I would say. Thanks.
So, ma'am, what you're trying to say somewhere is about creating trust, empathy with these people, and making a personal bond beyond just the organizational. That's what HR can drastically change, right? So, the most awaited question of today for Sampada ma'am from Tata Motors. Ma'am, how do we get free Neo coins?
Sorry.
Oh, ma'am,
We'll
it's
talk
okay.
about it soon.
Everyone wants to know that. So, or maybe your job in Tata also. Those are the two questions everyone in the house wants to do. Jokes apart, what is your take on role of leadership to manage and inspire continuous learning? A sum up of both the questions we asked before. Somewhere.
Sure. So I think I'll just add to the points that Judith and Nitu mentioned. Right now, there's a metaphor which is coming to my mind, and that is that of a well and a river. Okay? Water is the next oil, or probably it is the oil already. So what happens in well? Well, you have people going to the well to get water. Very similar to we all going to work to earn a good purpose for life. The other is river. River is where the river comes to you, the water comes to you, right? Fresh water coming to you. I think the simile is very striking when you talk about role of leadership. Leadership, if water has to flow, and for flow to happen, there needs to be three things that a leadership needs to play. I call it 3 C's. One is competence. Imagine with so much of technological disruption, what is the role that the leadership would have? If leadership is not up to date on competence, on all the technological disruptions, you talk about Tata Motors themselves, if the leadership is not competent on Gen AI, on the various AI ML technologies, on the various digital transformation, it would otherwise, if not updated, it will end up having a cardiologist report to an engineer. Okay? That would be really worse. Competence, therefore, becomes extremely important. That's the role that the leadership needs to play, irrespective of, more so in a hybrid situation. Second is the connect, the point that Judith mentioned on well-being. The connect, the emotional well-being becomes extremely important. In a hybrid situation, when I'm working from home, it could be quite possible that we have islands of excellence working. But these islands need to be connected, which is where the river and the flow comes into picture. And the leadership needs to play that role. And that role of connect is not just connect through in-person or work from home or virtual. It's a connect of emotional well-being, the point that Judith was mentioning. So that connect becomes extremely important. And the third is, psychologically, we are social beings, right? So while collaboration and collaborative tools are definitely there, need for recognition and acknowledgement is as much a social and a psychological need for us as human beings, right? who plays that role? It's got to be the leadership, right? The leadership needs to play that role of celebrations. And celebration is not just cake cutting or engagement. It's the word engagement is much more pronounced. The need is much more pronounced now in terms of recognition, in terms of appreciation, in terms of a pat on the back, right? So these three C's become extremely important: competence, connect, and celebration, that the leadership needs to play more so consciously in a hybrid situation. And therefore, if we're talking about culture, of course, there are different kinds of culture. But if these three have to be tied in, the culture of inclusion becomes extremely important. The culture of coaching and mentoring becomes extremely important. And thereby the culture of innovation, which is going to feed into my business top line, bottom line, both, right? So I think that's the role that becomes more pronounced.
So in a way, to get free Tata Neo coins, we have to join Tata Motors. That's what you're saying, more engagement. Okay, my question to Padma ma'am from Neilsoft is, what are the key challenges in maintaining organizational culture in a hybrid work model, and how can L&D leaders, address them?
It's a wonderful question. I guess all the questions are interwoven and most of the speakers have addressed it. So it might be a little repetitive, and I think we all are coming in between the lunch and sabke pet mein shachue kaud rahe. So I will be a little brief, though there's a lot to talk about. We were told by Ashutosh, thoda sa gyan dena, zyada nahi. So due to which I wanted to talk about, I feel first is communication. When it comes to a hybrid workforce, communication is the most important thing. Where you want to be, maybe first the senior leadership knows, but in a hybrid workforce, when people are working from home, sometimes they don't know what is the target. Am I going through a dark tunnel? Where is the end of the tunnel? So that communication, each manager, like it has to populate from top to bottom. So one is that. Then second is cohesiveness. Like once you're working from home, some people are working from office. So the cohesiveness in the team is little lacking. The people, they become buddy, people who are coming to office, and people who are at home, they become little, left out. So this is second challenge. And of course, culture is one of the challenges which everybody is speaking about. Especially the new joinee comes in and he's sitting in remote. He doesn't know what is the organization culture. Culture cannot be put in words or in sentences. You have to feel the culture, for which you have to be a little bit coming to the organization, see how others are doing. A simple thing, helping someone or opening the door when somebody is coming in. These are the common things that is there, the etiquettes, the culture of the organization. That is the third thing. Fourth thing is the way the performance is getting measured. If you all think of it, pre-COVID era, everywhere it is, kitna der tak office mein baitha tha. Did he clock in the hours? And how many hours? What is the billability? What is the utilization? So its attendance was more like that. But with the hybrid model, I think it become more outcome based. Where is the task that is being assigned? Is it getting completed? Did the person do it? He may have hundreds of problems. Like when she mentioned about empathy, like the manager has to be empathetic and ensure at the end of the day, he should deliver. But sometimes, what happens, the challenge is, people think, like there is a power cut, Wi-Fi is not there. But they will not tell that this problem is there at home. So at the end, the deliverables get affected. So that is where comes the L&D or the HR and the manager to tell them that be vocal, be open of whatever hurdles is you're facing. So that, customers' deliverables doesn't get affected. So this is one of the things which I can think about, and there are lots more. I don't want to add more onto this because, so many speakers are there. Each person will give their own inputs. So this is what is the major, which I think that we have challenges, and I clubbed both together. One more thing is the leadership style. A lot of managers are, helicopter parenting, like that helicopter managers. They keep on coming and looking, kya kiya, kya nahi kiya, ye abhi tak kyun nahi hua. So all these things they'll do. So it comes empowerment and letting them, this is the task, because we hire them based on the JD, assuming that whatever 70% at least minimum fitness is there. So give them that the way, that's how innovation comes in. If everything is the way it has to be done, it will never happen.
So leadership style wherein we have to coach them and engage them. And last but not the least, the well-being of the person who is working from home. It is a very important thing. Because we ignore that factor, whether he's stressed out, managing the household work and managing all the other things that is at home. Of course, he has a benefit of not coming to office through the traffic, but there are other challenges. So overall, these things we have to guide them, talk to them. Basically, communication and communication and communication, which helps everybody's life easy, is what I can say and talk about.
Totally, ma'am. I couldn't agree more. We at Edforce work in a... Yeah? Yes, sure. Yeah, sure. You can stand and ask. It's okay, we hear audio. Yeah.
Hello, thank you. So you mentioned one important term in communication, that is percolation.
Yes.
So I just want to know that how important percolation is always. I believe sometimes that to make the communication more touchy and engaging, you need not follow the steps of percolation. Do you agree with me? Sometimes more open communication can be further effective. Why always we follow steps? If A has to communicate something to D, why he has to go through B and C? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, the question is a very good question and pertinent question. Here, when I say percolation need not be the same words. It is something that the senior management or the owner thinks, I want to achieve this, for which they have certain paths. How do we achieve it? How do we implement it? Is in such a way that sometimes, it happens only in the boardroom meeting where, like, say, you want to acquire something or you want to undergo certain skills to be a part of the organization. Do we have to upskill or do we have to identify these people? So, may not be in the same words that is there, but in actions it goes down. So that the people understand that what is coming down, where are we? It's like a train. You board a train, you know where is the destiny. So in that, on the path, you meet a lot of things and lot of people, lot of stations, but at least you know the destiny. So somewhere, say, I want to achieve this goal, target, everything is being put in. So percolation may not be in the same way, it can be in different ways, but it has to, generically I mentioned the word percolation. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thanks.
You almost took word out of my mouth because what I wish, we at Edforce work in a hybrid environment, ma'am. So we also face this challenge that the structure, the flow of information generally in a normal workplace is very random. Like I wouldn't draw a line between going to some other team head because you are in an environment where you can have a conversation. You are in an office, but wherein in a hybrid workspace, to go to that third person, I need to go through a lot of channels, which does hamper the capabilities and also stops and limits a lot of things, which we at Edforce are also trying to figure out. But I think this is actually a very big issue that people need to go through the organizational structure, which does become a little bit of hindrance, which is very blurry when you are all sitting in the same office, because then you have a personal relationship also being built, even if it is in the sutta room or even if it is, just as someone who comes in the same Uber pool as you. Yeah. So my next question to Mr. Kaushal from Veritas. I think Veritas is our latest partner of Edforce. Is that the same Veritas? Yeah. So what are the best practices for ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in a hybrid work environment?
Sure. So first of all, I believe...
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So if we look at it, a hybrid work model, if it is well designed, it actually does support and honor diversity because it tries to accommodate different work location preferences of all employees. But it has to be designed well, right? It has to be based on a proper survey which tries to capture what are the preferences of a majority of employees, and then it is tailored to that. Even if it's well designed, it does pose some challenges to equity and inclusion. For example, let's say the most prevalent model is that people can work from home, but everybody has to come to office 2 days of the week. Now, if that's the model and HR communicates it, what you will see happening is people who have a preference to work from office will come all 5 days. People who have a preference to work from home because the commute is too long or they have ailing parents at home, whatever the reasons might be, will come only for 2 days, right? And the moment this diverse pattern shows up for a manager, there are some biases that crop up. So there's a proximity bias, which means that the manager will favorably rate those people who he or she sees more often in the office. And that's where L&D has to play a role to sensitize people that, look, you need to be fair and equitable to everybody who's following the policy, right? And so L&D plays a big role in sensitizing the managers as well as employees to be consistent in their approaches. Simple things. For inclusivity, there has to be a mindset for inclusivity first. It starts from there. I can give you a simple example. I mean, as an L&D person, I facilitate a lot of trainings, meetings, which are hybrid. So I have 20 people sitting in front of me in person like this, and there are another 20 or more people on the call. And 5 minutes into the meeting or the training, when I start engaging with the live audience, there's a temptation to almost forget that there are 20 people on the call. And they soon start feeling excluded. Now that's again an area where L&D can train managers or facilitators, anybody who hosts meetings, to say, please make it a level playing field for everybody. Which means that you may have to occasionally stop and check, does anybody on the call have a question? Or wants to unmute the line and speak? Give them the option to type in the chat window and read it out with their names. Simple things that you can do to make things inclusive. We talked about the role of technology. I mean, I'm quite impressed to see what technology is doing today. For example, in a meeting room, we have a large meeting room which can accommodate 100 people. Now, what used to happen in the past is if somebody in the corner says something, then people on the Zoom call can't hear it. Now, we've installed some mics in the ceiling which capture anything, even a small murmur in the corner of the room. And the next evolution of that technology is going to be that the camera will also zoom in on the person who's talking. and these solutions are already there, right? So the person on the Zoom call is actually getting almost like an in-person experience. So these are small things that can be done. I think Anand already talked about inclusion in terms of if you're having team lunches, traditional days, yoga days, make it accessible to people on Zoom, get them included as well. So all of these things are happening. Finally, all the surveys, all the research shows that some of the underrepresented groups, such as people with disabilities, LGBTQI community, women, all prefer a hybrid work model as compared to an entirely come to office model. So there's a lot to be gained in terms of DEI if we have the right hybrid work model. That's what I would say.
So that Zoom call with a Zoom camera is going to be so scary. Imagine we talking, bitching about the boss, and the boss is like, Zoom. So the room is going to be all silent.
Yeah, you watch out for that.
It's actually scary. So my next question, we guys are coming towards the closure, don't worry. And don't worry because the biryani is still getting ready, the dal is still galofying, so you're not missing out on anything. Just bear with us for a while. Soumya ji, I have a question for you. What innovation approaches can be adopted to support employees' well-being and mental health?
Okay, thanks, Ashutosh, for the question. So actually, I'm sure all of us will realize that in the last few years, particularly the post-pandemic years, the entire discourse around employee well-being, and like you rightly said, mental and emotional well-being is kind of taking center stage. In fact, every year our organization publishes a report. It's called the Global People Risk Report. I was glancing through that report recently, and I was quite fascinated to see that deterioration in mental health has been ranked as the 8th highest or the most significant people risk from a list of 25 risks that were surveyed globally. And unfortunately, as it may be for India, it is ranked at number 5. So it is among the 5th most critical people risk as seen by HR and risk management practitioners in India, right? Our report also tells us that Gen Z, which is all our young colleagues, many of our young colleagues, are actually twice more likely than any other generation to become a victim of mental health issues, right? Even if I keep all this data aside, I'm sure that all of us who are here today and in the room today will actually be able to draw upon our own life, our own lived experiences to sort of understand that how pervasive and how serious is this problem of deteriorating emotional health and mental health of people around us. I mean, there are countless examples. All of us would know somebody or the other who's struggling with this problem. So what is the point that I'm trying to make? The limited point that I'm trying to make is this, that this is a grim reality that confronts us. The discourse, the discussion around mental well-being and emotional well-being is something that cannot be sidelined. It cannot be shoved under the carpet anymore. It is something that we need to address on a war footing. So that brings me to the question of what. What is it that we can do? And from my side, there are three things that come to my mind. The first one is, perhaps this is an opportunity for us to relook and rethink about the nature and design of certain jobs. Now, what do I mean by that? What I'm trying to say is there are certain jobs that are designed in such a way that the job design itself becomes detrimental to the well-being of the person, right? Very simple examples. There can be certain jobs that entail physical risks or jobs where the work environment has a lot of hazards. In fact, one of the most common problems with job design is work overload. And I'm sure many of us will agree to that. In fact, our research indicates a very increasing trend of people who are quitting the workforce because of burnout issues. So burnout and work fatigue is very, very real. And I'm sure all of us will have experienced colleagues who've just opted to leave the workforce because they were so burnt out, right? Another interesting aspect of job design, and which I feel is very relevant, particularly in the knowledge economy and the service sector, is the fact that there are certain jobs that inadvertently may be designed to be very restrictive. What I mean by that is jobs that don't allow people creative freedom, expression, tapping into their strengths, autonomy, empowerment, decision-making. Jobs may not be designed to give people these experiences. And when role holders are in these jobs, they begin to feel very stifled. And these are things that, quite intuitively are not, helpful for the health and happiness of anybody. So perhaps this crisis is an opportunity for us to relook at certain jobs and job designs in our organization. That's the first thing. The second thing that I'd like to talk about is perhaps all of us can start doing certain interventions that impact the cultural fabric of our organization. Now, I'm cognizant of the fact that when I use the word culture, it entails an entire universe of things. I would like to pinpoint a couple of things. One, that when it comes to any form of culture building, role modeling becomes very important. So what are your leaders walking the talk? Are your leaders creating an environment where people can openly talk about their failures, their vulnerabilities, their struggles with mental health? How do they stand up and work towards destigmatizing these conversations, and such colleagues in the organization becomes important. Secondly, any discussion on culture building, or when we are trying to impact or move the needle on organization culture, will have to talk about training, educating and sensitization of employees. Culture building, whenever that has to happen, training and sensitization become very important building blocks of that. So it's important that we spend some time in sensitizing the entire workforce and certain critical pockets of the workforce like the HR teams and people managers on mental health challenges of people, because quite intuitively line managers and HR folks are the first line of response when it comes to a mental situation, and many of us are traditionally not used to dealing with this. So there's a huge need to work towards training, upskilling and sensitizing. My third and final point is more on the tactical side, which is that we really need to relook at some of our well-being related benefits. So perhaps this crisis is an opportunity for us to also look at our entire benefits portfolio. So when we talk about benefits or well-being benefits, traditionally what comes to our mind is insurance, GPA, GMC, workmen compensation, etc. But really keep your hand on your heart and ask you that, is that enough for the workforce of today? Perhaps not, right? So what is it that we can do? I'll keep it very short. Look at your benefits from 3 points of view. Prediction, prevention, and personalization, right? What I mean by that is, instead of only focusing on benefits like insurance that get triggered when the crisis has already happened, see if you can do something to proactively identify a crisis in the making, identify red flags. Simple things. Every organization sits with huge Excel sheets of insurance data, health insurance records and utilization data. Can we only spend some more time and analyze that data better to identify certain trends and patterns? That will help us in prediction. Prevention means don't just give insurance, but work towards other things like vaccination support, annual health checkups, doing mindfulness and resilience trainings that can build the capacity of people. And last but not the least, personalization. Your benefits cannot be one size fits all. Allow your colleagues, your employees an option to choose from a bouquet of offerings. So I think this was slightly, I'm sorry I've taken more time, but some inputs through which we can impact the well-being of colleagues. Thank you.
It's okay. Hello. It's okay. दाल में भी तड़का लग रहा है. मुझे पता चला तो 5 मिनट है. So, Mr. Pratap Pawar, can you help me in reading the room what we discussed today and how all of us who have the same, thoughts, same perception, what do you exactly think is the future for a hybrid workplace? And yeah, your input.
Sure. And I hope everybody is able to hear me. Our moderator is very smart. He made a promise of keeping it short, and now he's put the onus on me. In fact, he's so smart that before we came to the dais, what he did is he gave us a chocolate, a very nice chocolate. He said, you can eat it, put it in your mouth, don't chew. And
we have a lot of them on Ferrero at first all of you drop.
And I'm sure all of us chewed, right?
So I gave them a challenge, I gave them a raw shows, and I told them this is like actually an exercise. If you think you have self-control, keep it in your mouth. Try not to chew it. Try to melt. Trust me, you wouldn't be able to. That shows that we really can't resist a few things, right? Sorry.
But, sorry, moderator, we chewed. As a student of psychology, I blame my lizard brain for that, not the human brain. But before I come back to what happened in the room, I just want to apologize to Kanika ma'am and the young lady who was talking about DEI. I apologize. Again, it was my lizard brain that reacted. I was just trying to get focus back onto the topic. And I would suggest the organizers, maybe, the next workshop or event that we have could be focused around Kanika ma'am doing the central theme and then all of us kind of pitching in for it. That would be a great theme. So let me start. Please accept my sincere apologies, unconditional apology for that. We heard all of them.
Excuse me, sorry. Can you just sum up and then we can ask questions? Can we, we really need to finish the panel, yeah. Please, can we take the question later?
I'll come down and talk to you.
All I'm saying is, when you call identity is nonsense, I'm not sure what you're doing with psychology.
Yeah, we will talk. We'll talk.
I don't feel safe around people.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what we heard all the panel members talking about is, and it was really surprising for me because everybody was talking about soft skills. We did not really discuss how technology is going to help. Maybe we just touched briefly upon it. But everything boiled down to how we are going to make it work in a hybrid model and how these soft skills, the human touch, how do we get it back? And I think that's the core of our HR, as all of us are HR professionals. That's what we were trying to do. And again, that brings me back to the learning processes. Each human being can be categorized into 7 different types of IQs. And these IQs define which is the best method how we are going to learn. And same is applicable to the trainers also.
is that trainer equipped to deliver the content in the way the students are able to accept it or absorb it? So I think that's one focus area that was left out untouched. So I just wanted to add that one point. But I felt that everything that we spoke about, whether it is empathy, whether it is communication, percolation down, how that happens, and why that is going to be important, including diversity. Once we are into a hybrid mode where we are not going to have face-to-face conversations, I think all that comes up to the core HR. And remembering Shashwat's point, not forgetting that we are all on a blue dot. Instead of, too many things being done at the same time, we should just focus on that particular aspect of getting our human connect right. And then going about the L&D, I think that's something that I can sum up as a collective intelligence that we run. Thank you.
Totally, sir. And in any room, मेरे घर के अंदर 4 लोग रहते हैं और 3 तरीके के खाने बनते हैं. तो यहाँ पे तो 150-200 लोग हैं पुणे के who are first time attending an event like this. I feel, which is very specific to the future of L&D, which we are trying to do. That's why we wanted to take an initiative. And at times I find it is nice that people disagreeing because they are actually understanding what we are talking about. And that is how we build a future, right? If everyone agrees to something, it's not that we built something. It was already a layout which was already there. We would not have made anything if we wouldn't be disagreeing here. I would say that, and always it's good to have everything in a very positive way and everything can be talked out if someone wishes to. Leaving all of that aside, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this session. Before I ask you to stand up for a round of applause, right? Just give me a minute, yeah? So I did find a lot of things. I just want to ask like in 1 word or in 2 words or very shortly, has anyone seen the approach which is coming in the hybrid workplace as well as L&D, which is called reverse mentoring? Because ma'am, you talked about Gen Zs, right? So one of the biggest problems which is here, sorry, we guys are exceeding the time, but this is really relevant. The biggest problem is I, so much so that everyone has started struggling on Zoom, opening something, doing something, sharing the screen. But that child who just joined yesterday, or maybe that young blood who is here, who's a pro at all of this, he's losing his attention because few of us are actually struggling. There are organizations who are actually taking reverse mentoring very seriously, in the sense this guy comes up, he's good at Instagram. Pick that guy, make him sit with the CEO, that kind of also things are happening. Have you guys witnessed reverse mentoring in your organizational, formally, informally, or not at all? Has it touched Pune?
Informally, for sure, yes. Right, because when we make collaboration groups, we keep in mind, I think when we come up with projects, initiatives, the task force that we put together is very carefully curated to have folks across the board, right from CEOs to somebody who's an entry-level associate. And by the virtue of work is where you get, mentoring and reverse mentoring. So it's not a formal program. We do not have a formal program, but our cohorts, our working projects are curated accordingly. So everybody is a part of it and you learn from each other.
That's nice. Just reading the room once before we are ending, just asking a show or a raise of hands, how many of you had heard about reverse mentoring before this? Great. Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you had practiced reverse mentoring before that? How many of you have formally implemented reverse mentoring in your organizations? How many of you have actually taken reverse mentoring from someone? Really nice. So I think this is very important because these Gen Z will only relate to you till the time you relate to them. Yeah?
So much to learn from them.
Yeah. You have something.
I just wanted to say it's not just the organization, even the kids teach us. So they are the first, yeah. So they teach us like any new tool they know and anything they can figure out. So they teach us. So reverse mentoring, lingo and including whatever we spoke about sometime about, they are very mindful as compared to our generation, wherein how to approach, how to talk, and a lot of things that the younger generation is way ahead than whoever we are sitting out here.
I am a live example. Like Kanika ma'am's father, I am also ex-armed forces person.
Wow.
I joined the corporate some 12 years back, and I was at sea for the first 2-3 months. It's only when the youngsters around me, they started reverse mentoring, and it was formally implemented in my organization. That's when I actually felt settled in. And now we have this program for every new leader who's coming in. People go welcome them and they tell them what's right and what's wrong in the organization, help them settle down.
What a lovely panel, ma'am. Tata Neo Coins. You're going to be taking me to canteen for alcohol. A super panel. Guys, before you head out for lunch and before everyone is facilitated, one small exercise so that you have some, active Pachan Shakti. Let's get up and give a round of applause because I've never seen a panel so enthusiastic. 11 people on a panel, the room laughing throughout. Superb job. My heart to all of you, a lot of respect. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. मैम नहीं बोल रहे, मैम को पता है फिर से नुओ कॉइन मांग लेगा, इसको नहीं बोलूंगी मैं. Yeah.
Diverse to felicitate all our fellow panelists.